The next service we're going to talk about is NPV, or net present value. Henry, could you explain what that is?
Absolutely. The net present value is something that was created by the FDIC a few years ago. And the net present value is several formulas that help gauge whether or not the investor should consider modifying, doing a short sale, doing a foreclosure, and it takes the value, the income of the homeowner, and it's various formulas. And this net present value started being utilized about 1.5 years ago, or close to 2 years. And what that means is that you may be denied for a net present value analysis, and you're not going to be told by the bank. You may just be denied because they said that you do not meet the net present value requirements. So it's very important that we provide our own net present value analysis, because in that analysis, we can show them that it makes more sense. If it makes more sense for you to keep your home, or you can show that we can show the investor that it's better for them to modify you than it is to foreclose or to do a short sale, then they kind of have to, per a California Civil Code, they're supposed to offer you a modification. So when the bank does their own net present value analysis and you are denied for that, and that happens every day, it's important that we perform our own net present value analysis from our third parties that will show that the client definitely has the capacity to maintain the home, but more importantly, it benefits the investor. And when it benefits the investor, they are behooved, it makes sense for them to want to modify the client. And that's why the net present value analysis is probably one of the most important tools to assist you in obtaining a modification.
As Henry explained, we use net present value to show to the bank that you can actually afford staying in the home. One of the requirements when the government requested banks to provide loan modification was that the bank should show if it is to their benefit, if they foreclose the house, or if it is more beneficial for the person to stay in there and pay at a lower rate, or as you said, short sale or other alternative. This is a number that they look at and they evaluate in order to be able to give you a modification or not. Once we have the correct amount, we can come back with what the bank is telling us when they tell us you don't meet that number. And this will help us again in our modification, it will help us in our negotiation, and gives us that additional tool in order to be able to get our desired goal.
The notices came to her home in April. Andrea Geis's bank foreclosed on her. Behind in payments, out of work, a husband sick, she had nowhere to go. So she decided to follow the advice of her congresswoman and go nowhere. Geis is part of a new movement in the housing crisis, squatters.
For lack of a better term, you're kind of squatting in this house, aren't you?
Basically, yes. Yep.
Last resort?
Last resort, yes.
More than 4,000 properties were foreclosed on in Toledo's Lucas County last year. This year, it could be worse. There's a county clerk whose full-time job is typing up and sending out foreclosure notices.
Tomorrow morning, those will be mailed out.
Elected officials are saying Toledo is not in a recession, it is a depression. It is this bleak backdrop that inspired Toledo Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur to take the floor of the House earlier this month to tell her constituents to stay put.
So I say to the American people, you be squatters in your own homes. Don't you leave.
Kaptur says she has had it with government bailouts for Wall Street banks, but nothing for homeowners. She is advocating for a legal revolution, a demand that not one of her constituents leaves their home without an attorney and a fight.
Even if they've been foreclosed on, don't leave.
If they've had no legal representation of a high quality, I tell them stay in their homes.
Kaptur is behind a strategy called Produce the Note. Mortgages have been so divvied up on Wall Street that banks are having a hard time finding that original paperwork, adding a delay to foreclosures. She is also pushing banks to rework loans, especially those banks getting bailouts and holding mortgages of folks getting tossed out.
They're vultures. They prey on our property assets. And I guess the reason I'm so adamant on this is because I know property law and its power to protect the individual homeowner. And I believe that 99.9% of our people have not had good legal representation in this.
Without a lawyer, Andrea Geis bought a $147,000 home with nearly $40,000 down.
I should have had an attorney. I really should have had the attorney. I did not know.
She admits she didn't read the paperwork, didn't learn until it was too late. She had a subprime loan. Her payments of $883 a month jumped in a year to more than $1,500. When it did, she stopped paying.
So they foreclosed on you?
They have foreclosed on me. Yeah.
The law firm representing the bank in Geis's foreclosure declined comment to CNN. Another one of the banks Geis believes holds her note, Wells Fargo, said it wouldn't comment on individual cases but tries to work with homeowners. Backed by her congresswoman, Geis simply is not budging. Drew Griffin, Toledo, Ohio.
In the past year and a half, we have seen lenders make many requirements and changing the requirements on a weekly or monthly basis. We learn something new every day. We're beginning to learn what they use in order to either accept or deny a loan modification request. We've also been monitoring court cases, we've been monitoring litigation cases, and we're learning what works and what doesn't work. The services that we talked about are additional tools that help us get to our desired goal. Just as when you go to a doctor and you explain what is wrong with you, the doctor uses MRI, X-rays, blood analysis, and other services in order to determine what the problem is and find a solution for it. We use these services to determine where the problems are and to help us find a solution. If our course is to take litigation, all of these tools help us to continue with the litigation and to come out victorious. If our goal is to get a better modification now, they give us additional leverage when we're discussing the matter with the bank, and it helps us get what we want faster and more efficient. In a few minutes, a representative will be with you to answer your questions and to explain the services more. Thank you very much.